In this session, we will talk about the conjugate beam method. This is a very interesting method which is based between, parallels between the static and the kinematic quantities of a beam. Okay, so the static quantities are force-like quantities. For example, the bending moment, the shear force, and the load intensity. And the kinematic quantities are the deflection-like quantities, like the deflection, slope, or curvature. So these are the geometric properties of a beam, in a way. Okay, and in general, it is usually thought to be easier to calculate the static quantities. So, for example, bending moment, shear force, etc. If the overall quantities like reaction forces are known, these bending moment, shear force, etc. can be found out directly by force balance or moment balance type of relations, whereas kinematic quantities require a little more work. Okay, so the basic idea behind the conjugate beam method is that we create an imaginary beam, which is called a conjugate beam, okay, with appropriate boundary conditions, and load it with the M by EI diagram of the real beam. And recall that M by EI of any beam is also the curvature of the beam. Okay, so M by EI is essentially a geometric property. Now, once we create such a beam, then the shear force and the bending moment of the conjugate beam gives the slope and deflection of the real beam. Okay, so if we are interested in kinematic quantities of the real beam, we are converting that problem to finding static quantities of the conjugate beam. Okay, and if you see, what we are doing is, we are calculating the curvature of the real beam. Okay, so this curvature is the M by EI, and this curvature is being applied as a load intensity to the of the conjugate beam. Okay, so this curvature is being applied as a load intensity to the conjugate beam. And if you see that these relations between different quantities are absolutely same. So, for example, if we have deflection of the real beam, its derivative gives the slope, and derivative of the slope gives the curvature. Similarly, if we have bending moment of the conjugate beam, its derivative gives the shear force, and the derivative of the shear force gives the load intensity. Okay, so basically that is the link between these two, that once we have said that the curvature of the real beam is load intensity of the conjugate beam with appropriate boundary conditions, then the slope of the real beam is given by the shear force of the conjugate beam, and deflection of the real beam is given by the moment of the conjugate beam. Okay, so this is the basic idea. One very important thing here is the consideration of the boundary conditions. So let us see a few cases as to how these boundary conditions are considered. So on the left here are situations for a real beam, and the right hand side in red color are situations with the conjugate beam. So in the real beam, if we have an end simply supported, okay, so which means at the end, if we have a roller or a pin, which means for the real beam we will have the slope not equal to 0, because this thing can deform. So the slope can be non-zero, but the deformation or the deflection has to be 0, because this is supported. Okay, so then what we want is, because the slope is non-zero, we want shear force of the conjugate beam to be non-zero, but since the deflection is 0, we want the moment of the conjugate beam at that support to be 0. Okay, so this kind of a support again happens to be an end simple support, where in a simple support, what we know is that you will have a vertical reaction, or which will be sort of a shear force, but the moment will be 0. Okay, so a simple support of a real beam, end simple support, remains an end simple support for a conjugate beam. Okay, so this is the first situation. Second situation is, let's say if there is a fixed support for the real beam. So in a fixed support for the real beam, we know that the slope and the deflection both will be 0 for the real beam, and hence we want the shear force and the bending moment both to be 0 in the conjugate beam. Now a situation where both shear force and bending moment are 0 is when you have a free end. Okay, so a fixed support of a real beam becomes a free end for a conjugate beam. Okay, and similarly, if we have a free end in a real beam where we will have the slope and the deflection both non-zero, so we would want in the conjugate beam that the shear force and the bending moment should be both non-zero, and hence what we have is that a free end of a real beam becomes a fixed support for a conjugate beam. Okay, we can consider one more case. If there is an internal simple support, so this happens in continuous beams where the span is continuing and there is an intermediate simple support or a roller support. So this is a situation where the deformations can happen like this for the real beam. Okay, so this is a situation where the slope will be can be non-zero, but it is continuous. Okay, but the deflection will be 0 because it is supported. So what we want is that the shear force should be non-zero in the conjugate beam but continuous, and the moment should be 0 in the conjugate beam. Okay, and this situation happens with an internal hinge. So an internal simple support of a real beam becomes an internal hinge in the conjugate beam. Okay, and vice versa, you can see that an internal hinge of a real beam will become a internal simple support for the conjugate beam. Okay, so these are some considerations for supports and ends in a beam. Now a brief note about the sign conventions. Okay, so see, the Q of x being applied to the conjugate beam is applied with the sign of the M by EI diagram. Okay, so if if phi is positive, it is applied upwards. If phi is negative, it is applied downwards. Okay, and hence the positive shear force of the conjugate beam will give a positive slope which will be in the counterclockwise direction of the real beam, and a positive bending moment of the conjugate beam will give a positive deflection which will be upwards for a real beam. Okay, now let's look at an example. So here there is the real beam is or the given beam is a cantilevered beam of length L and bending rigidity EI. There is a tip force P being applied, and we can draw the bending moment diagram of the real beam. That comes out to be this, and the bending moment is negative throughout. Okay, now when we formulate the conjugate beam for this particular situation, let's say the support A becomes A bar, and since support A was fixed at A bar, we have a free end. Okay, so this was fixed, so at A bar we have a free end, and the end B, which was free earlier, that becomes B bar, which is fixed. Okay, so a fixed end becomes a free end in conjugate beam, and a free end becomes a fixed end in a conjugate beam. Okay, and then we apply the load intensity to be the M by EI or the curvature diagram of the real beam. Okay, and since this is negative, okay, we apply it in the downward direction. So the load intensity being applied, so basically this is a triangular load with the peak at PL by EI, and it is being applied in the downwards direction. Okay, and once we have made our conjugate beam, then we can talk about what are the shear force or bending moment diagrams of the conjugate beam. Okay, so before that we can find out the, let's say, the support reactions of the conjugate beam. So if we draw the free body diagram of the conjugate beam, it will take this form. Okay, and we can calculate the MB bar, the moment at B, and VB bar, the shear force at B, right? So by simple force balance, so VB bar becomes minus PL square by 2 EI. Now since this is shear force at B bar, in the real beam it will give slope at B in the real beam. Okay, so slope at point B becomes this is theta B. theta b is minus PL square by 2 EI. And since there is a minus sign, it implies that this is a clockwise rotation as per our sign convention. Okay. Similarly, MB bar comes out to minus PL cube by 3 EI, and this will give delta B, or deflection of point B in the real beam. And again, since there is a negative sign, this indicates that the deflection is downwards direction as per our sign convention. Okay. And once we have this, we can draw the full shear force and bending moment diagram of the beams. Now, since the load intensity is linear in nature, the shear force diagram is going to be quadratic, okay, and the bending moment diagram is going to be cubic, and at the free end, both of them will be 0, shear force and bending moment of the conjugate beam, and at the fixed end B bar, we have just calculated them, so they will take on these values. Okay, so this now this shear force diagram becomes the slope diagram of the real beam, and this bending moment diagram becomes the deflection diagram of the real beam. Okay, and deflection diagram is also the deformed shape. Okay, so bending moment diagram of the conjugate beam will give the deformed shape of the real beam. Okay, so like this, you see that it becomes quite straightforward. So all we need to do now is to calculate forces and bending moments at different points on the conjugate beam, and that will directly give us the slope and deflection of different points on the real beam. Okay, let's look at one more example. So now let's say there is a simply supported beam AB which is given, and the objective is to find slope at A. So we want to find theta A, and the deflection at midspan, and midspan we are calling C, so we want to find delta C, and we want to find theta A. Okay, now for the real beam, the bending moment diagram comes out to like this. So there is an end applied moment which is there. When we make the conjugate beam, so recall that for a pin or a roller support, the nature of the support does not change for the conjugate beam. So a simply supported real beam remains a simply supported conjugate beam also, right? So the points have corresponding images, so A bar, B bar and C bar, which correspond to points A, B and C of the real beam. Okay. Now here the bending moment diagram of the real beam is positive. So when we divide this by EI to convert it to the curvature diagram of the real beam, so we get a positive load intensity, and hence if you see here on the conjugate beam, it is applied upwards because this is a positive load intensity. Okay, and again as earlier, to find VA bar, okay, so to find theta A, we want to find VA bar. So shear force at point A bar will be same as the slope at point A. Okay, now this can be then calculated by force balance, and if we want to calculate the delta C, that delta C will be MC bar. Okay, so that MC bar can also be calculated by moment balance type relations. So eventually we get theta A and delta C. Okay, now theta A, which is VA bar, so the slope at A, which is the shear force at A bar, that comes out to be negative, which means this is a clockwise rotation at A. And delta C, which is MC bar, or deflection at C, which is the moment at C bar, that also comes out to be negative, which means the beam has a downward displacement at point C. Okay, and that is apparent from the loading conditions as well. Let's look at one more example. So this is an indeterminate beam. Okay, so this is a propped cantilever beam where the point A is fixed supported and the end B is roller supported. There are 3 loads being applied. Okay, so the conjugate beam for this will be where A bar is free and B bar is roller supported, right? And this needs to be loaded with the M by EI diagram of the real beam. Okay, now of course in this case we cannot directly get the M by EI diagram because this is an indeterminate problem. So for this particular beam, we will not be able to draw the bending moment diagram directly. So one thing which can be done is that this propped cantilever beam can be converted to an equivalent real beam. So when we say equivalent real beam, that indicates that it is same as the real beam. Okay, so this equivalent real beam has no relation with the conjugate beam. Okay, now if we were to imagine that we convert support A to a pin support instead of a fixed support, we convert it to a pin support, so that will reveal one moment which is unknown. So MFAB, known as the fixed end moment at location A. Okay, so that will come out. That also will be the support moment at joint A, and that is not known. Okay, and as such it cannot really be computed from only the equilibrium conditions for the real beam, because that is a indeterminate beam. Okay, now the other loadings are shown as it is. So if we consider that this simply supported beam is equivalent to this propped cantilever beam. Okay, so if we were to draw the bending moment diagram for this simply supported beam, that will also be the bending moment diagram for the propped cantilever beam, and that is what we want for us to determine the loading of the conjugate beam. Okay, so for BMD of the real beam, we consider simply supported beam AB. Okay, and we will use the principle of superposition, where now there are 4 different type of loads being applied. So one is a UDL of 5 kilonewton per meter, one is a concentrated load of 100 kilonewtons, okay, one is a concentrated moment of 10 kilonewton meter, and one is an unknown moment or the fixed end moment MFAB. Okay, so the first 3 cases are known, the last case this MF is unknown. Okay, and for each case we can draw the bending moment diagram. So these are all the 4 bending moment diagrams which come for the simply supported beam AB, and we all realize that if we add all of these 4 cases, then what we will get will be the bending moment diagram of the real beam, which is the propped cantilever beam. Okay, so now we are ready to load our conjugate beam. Okay, so for the conjugate beam, which is shown here, A bar, B bar, we have 4 loads which are being applied. So let's say this one is coming from the concentrated load. Okay, so this is a positive bending moment. So this one is being applied upward to this beam A bar, B bar. The second, let's say, comes from the UDL. Okay, so this second will be a parabolic in nature diagram, and again, since this is positive, it is being applied upwards. The third is due to the concentrated end moment, the known concentrated end moment, and that is negative in nature, so that is being applied downwards. And the fourth one is due to the unknown MFAB, and that also, for the assumed direction, it is downwards, so we are applying it in downwards direction. Okay, so now if you really see, this conjugate beam appears to be unstable, because it is roller supported on one end and it is free on the other end. However, since this is a corresponding conjugate beam for a stable real beam, this should be under equilibrium. Okay, so what it means is that if we were to combine all the 4 load cases, so 1, 2, 3 and 4, the beam should be in static equilibrium. Okay, so it should be in static equilibrium with respect to force as well as with respect to the moments. Okay, now if we write at the equilibrium condition for the conjugate beam, we can, let's say, write the summation of moment about point B bar to be equal to 0. Okay, so that will give us for this load at 1, the equivalent load may be acting maybe somewhere here, which we are calling P1, right, and this P1 is acting at a distance of 4.67 meters. Okay, similarly for the parabolic load, let's say it is total load is P2 and that is acting at L by 2, so that is basically 5 meters. Okay, the concentrated moment load or this triangular load is we are calling as P3, and let's say that is acting at we can find out that is acting at 3.33 meters from B bar, and this unknown force we are calling P4, and that is acting at 2L by 3, which comes out to 6.67 meters. Okay, so when we are writing the moment balance about B bar, so we have P1 times 4.67 plus P2 times 5 minus P3 times 3.33 minus P4 times 6.67, all of that equal to 0. And if you really see, this equation has only one unknown, which is MFAB. Okay, so in this way, by doing force equilibrium for the conjugate beam, we are able to find the fixed end moment, MFAB. Okay, and once we have found out MFAB, then we can find out anything else. So basically for theta B, what we need is shear force at B bar. Okay, so that we can calculate. Okay, and this is what we wanted to know. So in this problem, we wanted to know theta B, and this theta B is same as the shear force at B bar. Okay, for all these loading cases. So we can calculate that. Okay, so this way we are able to use this conjugate beam method even for indeterminate problems with relative ease. Okay, let's look at one more example. Let's say there is a fixed beam, and these beams will as we go along you will see that fixed beams are very common for idealizations. So there is a fixed beam AB which has a centrally applied load P, and we are interested in deflection at the midpoint, so we want to find delta C. Okay, now the conjugate beam method, conjugate beam for this fixed beam will be a free beam, so A bar, B bar, C bar, so this is a totally free beam. Okay, so again it will appear that this is unstable, but because it is a conjugate beam corresponding to a stable system, it should be under static equilibrium, and that is what will allow us to calculate the redundant forces. Okay, so again we can form an equivalent simply supported beam. Okay, so we convert both the supports A and B to simple supports A and B. Okay, and by virtue of doing this, that will reveal two unknown moments, MF and MF. Now here we are assuming that these two MFs are same because this is a symmetric situation. In case this P was off center, then we have to consider two different cases, MFAB and MFBA. Okay, so in that case they will be different, but procedurally that will not make a difference. Okay, now here MF is an unknown fixed end moment. Okay, and it is assumed to be equal due to symmetry. So again our objective is to find bending moment diagram of the real beam so that we can use it as a loading for the conjugate beam. Okay, so now there are two load cases for the real simply supported version of the beam. One is where there is a centrally applied load. So for this the bending moment diagram comes out to be in triangular shape and positive, and second is where these two unknown fixed end moments are being applied, and in this case the bending moment diagram comes out to be like this and negative. Now these two we will use to load the conjugate beam. So the first case is, let's say, for the applied load, which is positive bending moment diagram, so this is applied upwards, and the second case is due to the unknown moments, and which is negative bending moment diagram, so applied downwards. Okay, and similar to earlier, we will have, let's say, this one will apply at P1, and due to symmetry this will be at L by 2. and here the load being applied, let's say, is P2, and again due to symmetry this will be at L by 2. Okay, and P1 and P2 can be calculated, okay, with their respective signs. Now we can do equilibrium of the conjugate beam, which means that the net upward force and the net downward force should be 0. So P1 and P2 are equal. That gives us this equal to this. Basically from here we can calculate the fixed end moment, and this fixed end moment comes out to PL by 8. And next, we wanted earlier to calculate delta C, or deflection of point C in the real beam. So for that what we need is MC bar, or the bending moment at the midspan C bar of the conjugate beam. Okay, so now we can draw the free body of, let's say, C bar B bar portion of the conjugate beam. Okay, so there is an upward net force being applied in triangular shape, and there is a downward net force in terms of MF. But now we have calculated MF as PL by 8 EI, so that now can be directly applied. And for finding out MC bar, we can do the moment balance about point C bar. Okay, and that will give us MC bar equals to this, which means that delta C comes out to minus PL cube by 192 EI, and again the negative sign indicates that this is a downward deflection. Okay, so like this you see that this conjugate beam method is quite powerful in certain situations, and it is useful not only for determinate systems but also for indeterminate systems. And the basic idea is that we are converting the problem of finding kinematic quantities of a beam to a problem of finding static quantities of a beam, which is relatively more straightforward.